Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to my channel, guys. Hope you're all doing well and doing great. Today we are back with another video and we're going to talk about some past paper questions, and this is related to the topic plant nutrition, as we have already solved some question related to this topic. So we have find out some more questions related to this content. So let's solve these questions. So the first question is, and before going to solve the question, what you need to understand, you need to understand that what the examiner or what the invigilator is demanding. What is the demand of the question? So once you understand the demand of the question, you are able to solve the answer, or you are able to give the answer. So as let's read the statement number one. In the statement number one, the examiner said, or the invigilator says, that the diagram shows a root hair cell from a lemon tree and some soil particles. So this is the diagram of a root hair cell and the soil particle. These are basically the soil particles, and in between the soil particles, these are the air spaces. And this is a complete root hair cell with a long surface area. Now the question is related to the statement that state one feature visible in the diagram which shows that a root hair cell is a plant cell. That how it relates that it is a plant cell. So before going to solve this question, you must memorize that the root hair cell, what components are present in the root hair cell. It contains cell wall. The outer wall is cell wall. Then below the cell wall or inner layer is called as the cell membrane, which is partially permeable membrane. Then this whitish portion is called as the sap vacuole. It contains sugar, amino acids and water, and it stores sugar, amino acid and water. This is basically called as the mitochondria, which provide energy to the cell. Then nucleus, which control the cell activities, as well as some ribosomes. So we can write as many as we want to, because at least 1 marks doesn't mean that you are going to write simply cell wall. What if the cell wall is an incorrect answer? If you have written the sap vacuole as well, then you may get another marks. You can write mitochondria. You have to give at least 2 to 3 options. So if in case if one option is incorrect, then the examiner can see the other option, and if you get the marks, if that option is correct, then you will get correctly 1 marks. And if all the options are correct, that doesn't mean that you will get 3 marks. That means that you will get 1 marks. But at least you should know, and you should give 2 to 3 options. So if according to the examiner, we're going to check according to the marking scheme. So according to the marking scheme, if that is basically, if one option is not available, then at least the other option should be available. So hopefully this question is clear, that you need to write any visible feature. You can write sap vacuole, you can write by adding comma, you can write sap cell wall, you can write mitochondria, you can write nucleus, you can write cytoplasm, you can write as many options as you can. Describe how mineral ion passes from the soil into the root hair cell. As we have already discussed in the transporting plant, this question comes from the transporting plant. The mineral ions basically, so this is the mixture of both chapters, plant nutrition and transporting flowering plants. So mineral ions, basically, if there is a large amount of mineral ions are present in the soil particles, then they will be transported from soil particles to the root hair cell by a process called as diffusion, which means from higher concentration to low concentration. But if in the soil particles the mineral ions are present in the lower quantity, then they will transfer from soil particles into the root hair cell by a process called as active transport. So active transport is a process in which the molecules or the particles will move from low concentration to high concentration with the use of energy, and that energy is in the form of ATP. If you're going to talk, there is no need to discuss about the water movement, but if you are going to discuss that, then the water will move from soil particles to the root hair cell by a process called as osmosis. So you will get exactly 4 marks if you discuss about the active transport, if you discuss about the energy, if you discuss about the diffusion, and if you discuss about the concentration gradient. So these are the 4 points that you need to discuss about: active transport, diffusion, and you need to discuss about energy. It's all up to you. You're going to discuss about in points, or you're going to write it in a paragraph form, and you will get exactly 4 marks if that things are included in your text. So the next question is, the lemon tree has grown in the same soil for many years, so the soil now lacks magnesium. Like the question is basically, the lemon tree has grown in the same soil for many years, but now the magnesium is absent in that soil. So magnesium, you know that the magnesium is important for the formation of chlorophyll, or for the production of chlorophyll. So the question is, Describe and explain the effect on the lemon tree of a lack of magnesium. What if magnesium is absent? Then it will basically cause, if the magnesium is absent, magnesium helps in the formation. Firstly, you have to write the reason that the magnesium helps in the formation of chlorophyll, and chlorophyll is important for the process of photosynthesis. But if a soil lack magnesium, that the leaves will turn yellow, and that is called as, that disease is called as chlorosis. Chlorosis is basically the yellowing of leaves, and it occurs due to the lack of or the deficiency of magnesium. If magnesium is absent, then the plant will turn yellow, and the yellowing of leaves is called as chlorosis. And as a result, stunted growth or the retarded growth, that means the plant will stop growing. The growth will also stop. So hopefully you get the answer of this question as well, and you have a complete understanding. If not, please write in the comment section if there is any confusion yet. So the next question is, figure 3.1 is a photo micrograph of the center of a plant root. So this is the plant root as they have mentioned, and the other identification of the plant root, that the vascular bundles. In vascular bundles we have learned about that the xylem is basically the star shape and the phloem is outside. So inside is the xylem and the outside is the phloem. So let's see what the examiner asks. Examiner asks that identify each of the tissue J and K. It is a 2 marks question. So J is basically the phloem because it is the root cell, and as we have complete idea about that, the xylem is present inside, whereas phloem is present outside. So the tissue J is called as the xylem tissue, whereas the tissue K is called as the the tissue J is called as the phloem tissue, and tissue K is called as the xylem tissue, because in the root vascular bundles, xylem is present inside and phloem is present outside, and the other identification or recognition is that the xylem is star-shaped organ. So this is how the question arrives. So and now you get the idea that how we have to go through from the notes first, or go through from the content first, and then we have to solve our practice past paper as much as we have to do. So the next question is, state the term used to describe the group of the tissue labeled L. And basically this tissue that they're asking about, the entire, that this tissue is called as, they are basically the xylem and phloem. So the xylem and phloem are basically the vascular bundle. So these are, L is basically the vascular bundle. And I'm not going to solve it right over here. You have to get the complete understanding, and then you are able to solve these questions yourself. Practice it yourself. It would be convenient for you first to understand and then to solve on your own. So the next question is, state 2 ways in which the structure of a cell in tissue K will differ from the cell in tissue J. So state 2 ways in which the structure of a cell in tissue K. So we have to discuss about their structure. So K is basically the xylem and J is basically the phloem. And if we have just revise the structure of xylem and phloem, so we have discussed that the xylem have thick walls, whereas the phloem have thin walls. So we can also say that the xylem, there is no cross wall in the xylem, whereas there are the sieve plate in the phloem tissues, as well as we have also discussed that they are hollow, and they do not contain any companion cells, but they have companion cells in which nucleus is present. They are considered as so hopefully this, I guess this difference is enough. How many marks, like we have to check that it is a 2 marks question. So I have given you at least 4 to 5 points, so you can write at least 3 to 4. One is basically the xylem is thick wall, the phloem is thin wall, there is no cross wall, but there is cross wall like sieve plates are present, and there is no companion cell. The companion cells are present in the phloem tissues, and xylem help in the transport of water, whereas phloem help in the transport of food. So these differences are enough. But if you want to add one more, and if we memorize it, I guess we have studied about yesterday. So if you got the point that the xylem's wall are basically thick and they are deposited with the lignin, their walls are lignified. So but there is no lignified walls, or no lignin is present in the phloem wall. So these are the major differences on the basis of the wall, that thick wall high, then lignin is present, then no cross wall, and as well as we have discussed about that no companion cells, whereas phloem is basically the thin wall and it has companion cells, and they are the sieve plates. They have sieve plates, and there are no lignin is present in the phloem tissues. So hopefully the difference on the basis of structure, not on the basis of function, they have asked. So in the basis of structure, the difference is clear. So you can add as much as many point two structurally. You can add both of point K and point J of xylem and phloem. Outline the function of tissue J. Now you have to tell the function of tissue J, and J is basically the phloem. So phloem helps in the transport of food, and you can add, if you're gonna say that the phloem helps in the transport of food, you will get only 1 marks. But if you're gonna say that the phloem helps in the, hold on, just give me a break, just give me. So if you're going to say that the phloem help in the transport of food, then you will only get 1 mark. So this is the 4 marks question. So you have to add some more points, and you can add that the phloem help in the transport of food from source to sink. Source is an area or the region where food is synthesized, and sink is an area where food is stored. And sometimes in case of leaf is act as a source and root acts as a sink, and whereas in the autumn season the root act as a source and leaves and the stem act as a sink. And additionally you can add that the phloem is basically the bidirectional, because the food is transported from leaves to root and root to leaf, so it is two direction. As well as you can add the theory of basically the first point that you're going to add is basically the phloem help in the transport of food, which in term is called as translocation. And then you can add that the food is transported from source to sink and sink to source, that means from root to leaf and from leaves to root. As well as you can add a point of that the food that is transported from source to sink is basically sugar and amino acids are basically transported and stored in the form of sucrose or starch. So these all points you can add, and you will get exactly 4 marks. I repeat, it help in the transport of food, which in terms is called as translocation, and translocation is basically the transport of food from source to sink, and the food that is transported from source to sink is basically sugar and amino acids. And as well as it is bidirectional, it means that you are not supposed to add the meaning of it, but you should know yourself that what is the meaning of bidirectional. Bidirectional mean that the food is transported in two direction. It can transport it from root to leaf and from leaves to root. Okay, so the next question is, name the type of response shown by a plant root when it grows down into soil after the seed has germinated. So once the seed has germinated, so plant root, there is a response, basically response. Plants show different responses through stimulus, and that term we use a term for this, and that is called as tropism. Tropism is basically response of a plant towards the stimulus, and plants show gravitotropism or phototropism. If it is toward the light, then called as phototropism, and if it is toward the gravity, then it is called as gravitotropism. So the root is basically growing downward, and that is called as gravitotropism, and that is the positive gravitotropism, because a root, if the root has to grow downward, root need to grow downward, and stem needs to grow upward, and stem has to be grown upward, and that upward movement is basically the right movement, because stem are not going to be grow in the downward direction. So if the stem is growing upward direction, that is called as, but in case of gravity, this is called as negative gravitotropism, and the root is growing downward direction, so the roots are called as positive gravitotropism. So the response is basically called as gravitotropism. In simple words, if I repeat it in Urdu, that plant क्या response show करते हैं, तो प्लांट जो रिस्पॉन्स शो करते हैं उसके लिए हम एक टर्म यूज करते हैं जिसको हम ट्रोपिज्म कहते हैं, और ट्रोपिज्म कहलाता है कि प्लांट का क्या रिस्पॉन्स है टुवर्ड द स्टिमुलस, क्योंकि प्लांट जैसे एक जगह से दूसरी जगह तो आप मूव कर नहीं सकते हैं, तो उसके लिए वो रिस्पॉन्स शो करते हैं स्टिमुलस के थ्रू, और इट कैन बी ग्रेविटी, इट कैन बी लाइट, इट कैन बी वाटर. स्टिमुलस वाटर हो सकता है, स्टिमुलस लाइट हो सकती है, स्टिमुलस ग्रेविटी हो सकती है. अगर वो टुवर्ड्स द ग्रेविटी ग्रो करें तो उसे हम पॉजिटिव ग्रेविटोट्रोपिज्म कहेंगे, अगर वो अवे फ्रॉम द ग्रेविटी ग्रो करें तो उसे हम नेगेटिव ग्रेविटोट्रोपिज्म कहेंगे. सो द पॉजिटिव ग्रेविटोट्रोपिज्म जो है वो रूट जो है, आप ग्रेविटी की तरफ ग्रो करती हैं, डाउनवर्ड ग्रो करती हैं, तो दैट इज कॉल्ड एज पॉजिटिव ग्रेविटोट्रोपिज्म। और स्टेम जो है वो अपवर्ड ग्रो करती है, स्टेम इज नॉट गोइंग टू ग्रो डाउनवर्ड, सो स्टेम को हम पॉजिटिव नेगेटिव ग्रेविटोट्रोपिज्म कहेंगे। जो ग्रेविटी के टुवर्ड्स ग्रो करेगी उसे हम पॉजिटिव कहेंगे, और जो ग्रेविटी के अगेंस्ट ग्रो करेगी उसे हम नेगेटिव कहेंगे। इन केस ऑफ लाइट अगर हम बात करें तो स्टेम जो है वो पॉजिटिव ग्रेविटोट्रोपिज्म करेंगे, क्योंकि ये टुवर्ड्स द लाइट ग्रो कर रही है, और रूट जो है वो अवे फ्रॉम द लाइट ग्रो करती है, तो उसे हम नेगेटिव फोटोट्रोपिज्म कहेंगे। बट दे हैव आस्क्ड अबाउट द सीड जर्मिनेशन, तो सॉइल के अंदर जो सीड जर्मिनेशन होती है उसमें प्लांट की रूट की उन्होंने रिस्पॉन्स पूछा है। सो प्लांट रूट इज बेसिकली showing a response, and that is called as gravitrotropism, and this is positive gravitrotropism. So this is only 2 marks question. You will get 2 marks if you're going to write the positive gravitrotropism. There is no need to explain the gravitrotropism, but if you know what is gravitrotropism, you can simply explain that the gravitrotropism is the response of plants toward the gravity. So explain how this response shown by the plant root is necessary for the leaves to grow and to appear green. This response is important because roots will absorb the water, and roots contain the soil, basically contain the magnesium, which is absorbed by the root minerals, and what mineral lines and water will be absorbed by the root, which transported to the leaves, and then leaves are going to perform the process of photosynthesis, and photosynthesis is the process through which plants make their own food. So you will get exactly 4 marks if you're going to explain all of these points. बेसिकली इसने पूछा है कि कैसे ये रिस्पॉन्स जो है वो प्लांट रूट का नेसेसरी है लीव्स के लिए, ताकि वो ग्रो करें और ग्रीन अपीयर करें। तो रूट का फंक्शन होता है कि वो वाटर को एब्जॉर्ब करता है, एज वेल एज इट एब्जॉर्ब मिनरल लाइंस। सो इफ रूट्स विल ग्रो डाउनवर्ड टुवर्ड्स द ग्रेविटी, दे विल एब्जॉर्ब वाटर एंड मिनरल लाइंस बाय प्रोसेस डिफ्यूजन और एक्टिव ट्रांसपोर्ट और ऑस्मोसिस, एंड after absorbing that mineral lines and water, they're going to transport this water to the leaves, and they're going to transport then the water will be combined with the carbon dioxide and perform the, and through the mineral lines the chlorophyll is present, and by the help of the chlorophyll formation, by the help of the magnesium, chlorophyll will form, or formation of chlorophyll will occur. So once the chlorophyll be formed, the leaves will perform the process of photosynthesis, and that photosynthesis is important to make leaf green as well as to prepare their own food and transport the food from one part to another part through phloem tissues, which is basically source and sink. And if you discuss all of these points, you will get exactly 4 marks. So there's one more thing, another mineral line which is called as magnesium, and another mineral line which is called as nitrogen, or nitrates, that are important in protein synthesis. So both of them are important, but they just ask how to appear green. So if the nitrogen or the magnesium is absent, the leaves will turn yellow, and it will cause chlorosis, it can cause wilting, it can cause death of the plant, it can cause stunted growth or poor root growth. So these are all the deficiency symptoms because of the mineral lines. So this video is going to be much greater, so we're going to discuss the other part of the questions later. This is related to the source and sink basically, and we're going to discuss it in another video. Otherwise you can take a screenshot and try to solve these questions. What is basically the Q or S called? That is a source or sink. What do we call this? Basically this is the transport of water. So for the transport of water, which tissue is involved or which tube is involved? That is the xylem tube. And so you are supposed to tell the name of the S tube, and for the sucrose, the phloem tube is involved. Movement of sucrose is done by the Q tube, which is phloem, and movement of water is done by the transport of water is done by the S tube, which is the xylem. So you need to explain why the sucrose solution move along the tube Q in the model. For that purpose, if you haven't see my previous video that is related on the translocation, you must watch that and try to solve this. And do let me know in the question comment section. Otherwise I will catch you in another video. And this is the last question, which is easier one, so we're going to solve it instead of going to solve that one, because that requires time. So the video going to be much larger, so I don't want to make it more larger and much bigger. And the question is, amino acids are also transported through plants. State the name of the mineral line that is used to make amino acid. As I have told you that the nitrates are the nitrogen, so that mineral line is called as nitrogen. Or you can add a slash and you can add nitrogen, and you will have to write, you're supposed to write both nitrates or nitrogen, and examiner will give you exactly 1 marks. If both of the answers are correct, you will get 1 marks only. It doesn't mean that you will get 2 marks. but based on your analysis, if one of the question is incorrect and one of the answer is incorrect and one of the answer is correct, but on the basis of correct answer you will get 1 marks. So hopefully this video is quite informative. Please, as I repeat, keep sharing it with the candidate students, and happy Ramadan, and I will catch you in another video. Allah Hafiz.